Abraham Chori have done it again. So Abraham Chori came a conference recently with for the widows and orphans of his fallen soldiers in Burkina Faso. And in this conference, he promised them to put a $7 billion packages in for loan in the bank for them to have access to loan to open businesses, to build homes, for kids to go to school. And all those who have diplomas, orphans are gonna have priority hiring in every single industry across Burkina Faso. And who doesn't have, you're gonna train them. But he gave a lot of he explained everything in this conference. Take a listen to it, and we might discuss it a little bit after. Take a listen. Boom. Thank you for coming in such large numbers to this conference of widows and orphans, which is the first of its kind. Since the beginning of terrorism, I am very happy to be here this evening to listen to the grievances, if I may say so, but also so that we can find ways to quickly resolve the social economic conditions of the wives and orphans of our comrades who paid the price with their lives. But before anything else, I would like us to take a minute to pray for our comrades who have fallen in the field of honor for their homeland. We pray for them. We continue to pray for all those who have devastated us in the afterlife, but we do not mourn them because we do not want us to continue to feel sorry for ourselves. We will avenge them, and we will avenge them forever. All those who took up arms against our homeland will perish. Burkina Faso will be the tomb of the terrorists, I promise you. We will ensure that we continue to equip, train, and recruit Burkina Bay youths to defend our homeland, that we can bring them back to development. So hope for Burkina Faso, for the happiness of our people. So we'll be honored for those who sacrifice their lives so that we are here today, and continue to pray for all those who continue to fight so that our homeland remains as it is. The war was imposed on us. We have no choice but to fight, and that is what we are doing. Today, more than ever, we have the initiative on the ground, and we have averaged day by day all those who since 2015 have lost their lives. It's in this fight we cannot imagine the pain of everyone. But we know that you are the heroes during our absence. God only knows how you suffer, whether we return or not. The women continue to suffer at home. The children suffer a lot from our absence. It is painful, but be sure of one thing: it's for the homeland. And all we can do is think about how to take care of you so that this pain can be eased. I think that's the very essence of this conference that brought you together, so that we can find solutions and which come from us, from yourself. It must be said that we have been fighting for 10 years now, because the first terrorist act occurred in Burkina Faso since 2015. But in 2023, I therefore ask that we could have a fair database on the first wounded of their care, for having visited them therefore at the hospital, at the level of at the hospital, the soul camp, and we realize that we do not have an exhausted list of our wounded. We also held a conference with them so last year, which allowed us to identify many possible solutions. Still, we need to have a clear file, a clear list that allow us therefore in 2023 to reflect on the name and the same time and the file and the list of our wounded. We must therefore do have a list of who remain after our heroes who have fallen. That is the realization that we do not have a database. That is why we think that recently we have been working to develop an application from which people will be able to register. And I realize in any case that the application is ready and should be launched in hours or days that follow. And all the mechanisms are implemented to all help those who will not be able to register themselves. Even those occupied, accompanied who registered. At the first, we have clear the list of all those who have sacrificed everything for the homeland. It is from there that we can truly accompany or help these wives that you are and your children so that you can continue to support, continue to get support. But before all that, we have to take a certain number of measures to be able to accompany as much as possible. The list will therefore give us the extent of the situation and allow us to take the appropriate measures. And it is this sense that the souvenir was created because if we wanted to act effectively in favor of our wounded and our widows, our friends, we must have the agent and agency specifically dedicated to this because there are many services, and I know that many of you are often bothered even by the PONOS, our association, our services, which continue to call you left, right, and center. We want standardize all these data. That is why it is so big created, and I think that you will contribute through representatives at the level of the Oblivion to take charge of a certain number of data. I am already happy with the first point which was raised, in particularly finding a party which will bring together all the widows in Burkina Faso. That is already a very good start. With the database, I think that it will be very easy to do, and it is formed there that we will be able to get consistently in your favor, returning before you, which we were raised when I was taken of the empowerment of a woman, as you said, it is necessary to move towards that so that each woman can have enough to feed her family. That is the very essence of what we want to do. It is an imperative. Otherwise, how are we going to educate the children? How are we going to take care of the children? So in this context, you have set a certain number of measures which can be looked at, and we are going to reflect on the case of those who have attended vocational academy diplomas. The Minister of the Civil Service itself already taken these. The question of quota in particular, also the training centers that we have already initiated on a small scale, but it is not globalized. And I say again, the list will allow us to have a map because there are those who wish in big cities, but it is necessary that through the list we can know how many women come from Gora, come from Nicaragua, how many women come from Nauru, and that will allow us to have, according to the geographical situation, the proportion of women that will be able to put specific centers in certain places of the country to be able to accompany. But I already have with everyone everything you said. I can tell you something. We are in a dynamic. We're in a dynamic, and we are able to integrate you gradually. Those who have diplomas are those who do not already have those who benefit from training, whether in sewing, in softener, in catering centers and others. We are in the process of restructuring a lot of those funds at the government level, so that this year I was able to see the report, for example, of funds that will call for to Kabul. They gave loans to the tune of nearly 7 billion. But those who benefited from the loan, the objective of which they take the loan, I gave instructions to redirect the loans towards fairly strategic objectives. You will be able to benefit from loans in these structures. The far that you know, well, we are also in the process of revitalizing that it is in favor of all women. To clear, therefore, we have special advantage to that we can also have funds. You're able to settle the fund that existed for financial inclusion that we transform into an agency recently in the Council of Ministers. If you have followed it, become the agency of the promotion of financial inclusion, that we want to equip them so that they can support you, and it is the funds which will really also dedicate to small businesses, in particular, therefore, women who undertake or be able to have the minimum credit and to be able to autonomous in their employment. In addition, we want to undertake it agriculture or agricultural process. We also want to replenish the Dongogafa fund so that you can apply for one. We have the file clear enough. If you apply, we will see how to interact with all these funds to facilitate you and to follow up essentially on what you are going to undertake. So we do not want to just to train you and leave you. We want to train you to support you, to set up and allow you to work. When I take, for example, the field of soap, The one who produce soap is not just a question of producing. Often, sales also becomes complicit. So we have to also undertake measures already with the Prime Minister so that our administration can consume and transform the site. So instruction has already been given or will be given so that the first so that we can be able to consume what we will be able to transform. So you will have priority that will be passed on the level of all administration in Burkina Faso. And we are also very even wanting to put an industrial unit in place in terms of the economic. There will be several industrial units to transform within the framework of the agricultural initiative. We are doing a pilot for the military and we are training the FDS to produce, and who will transform the production is you. And we are going to put industrial units on site so that you can work in these units and be able to transform what the military will produce so that it can also be sold at the level of the army. So on this aspect, we are not worried. We have already taken a lot of initiatives and we have a fairly clear plan so that you can be employed properly. And since all that you are asked is to be able to really register on the platform, and we have a fairly clear list that we will be able to support you in everything that you want to undertake. Already, certain industrial units have launched, notably tax force in the army, textile industry, and I think that you have the priority for everything that is employment, so that at the level of industrial unity, BO, DULAS inform you that you have priority in these recruitments up to a certain category which is not technical, notably linked to the handling of machines and everything there is. So there are many initiatives that we're taking in direction so that you can be truly autonomous. And for me, as I say, I said to young people, and our idea is not necessarily to integrate people into public service, but also for us to have to we have to manage to produce wealth so that entrepreneurship industries we have launched this process so that you can really have decent permanent jobs and be able to take care of families. And still speaking in this sense, as the youth asked to create more training centers, the mapping will allow us to know what type of centers that were created. It's that is, if we create centers without knowing where these centers are concentrated, the woman will not be able to be effective on the platform. We will be able to map and choose the appropriate location to be able to set up training centers. You train and you in everything we will do like industrialize. We only at the beginnings, so we can assure you that there will be industries that will be set up in Burkina Faso, both by the private sector and the public sector. And we are currently discussing with them that if they create companies that you are given priority in certain jobs. And I think that many people have adopted this. In particularly, I visited the waste treatment industry in Pasado. Almost 100% of the women who work there are the ones from the FDS for the delegation of sales. So I even asked the question. Only today I was reassured that the process is almost finished. So I think that in the coming days it will be resolved. So we are aware of all the suffering behind this situation because I think it is almost okay now, if often takes a little time because all of this link to the fact that the lack of lists, lack of files is really a very serious problem. And once all of this is resolved, I think it will better because if we do not know everyone, we cannot come and present themselves as being here or our women who are heroes fallen. But a certain minimum of proof is needed that you yourself spoke of conflict between the in-laws and the widows is not easy. We have experienced this kind of situation and we must take precautions so that you are the one beneficiary of the harmonization of the decrees. I think that it is a point that we will look at quietly and levelly national armed forces and the internal security forces so that we can now harmonize on the compensation and see everything that is feasible on this aspect. Also, I think that you see little by little the creation of the comic which is being set up and see requests of compensation and all that it will switch at the level of the comic because it really creates a lot of problems for families. We have been on the ground and we have witnessed these situations. In particularly, I have lost a lot of soldiers in the meantime. In addition to the compensation within the unit, we often contribute to support our wives and children who remain. But for the first time, I lost a man. I admit that I was very disappointed because what we contribute to the unit, what we gave the woman, received nothing. It was really a shock. We had to recontribute as best we could and support her. That's why I said to take into account the question of compensation because, well, no one wants to lose a man on the ground, but if someone falls for the homeland, we must not just see money, give money that will be given afterwards and given like that. Well, good, it will be for nothing. So think that about every, even compensation for something like that. But we can at least develop something for the confession that our friends who can benefit from that. Already, we have modified the about the family personally. You have seen that we have now legalized customary marriages so that those who do not want to go before the mayor, I think that it will be valid for now on the way to wait for the assembly to adopt so that we can move forward because, well, for us, it is our culture. We get married. We do not want no people say that it is necessary to do the marriage come from elsewhere to be recognized. So we are used to getting married. So we decided to modify the inside of the law so that we can recognize that one who is going to get married in the church or in the mosque or traditional marriages, PPS, that we can recognize and make a clean paper that will be valid. So there you have it. ABM Chori have put multitude of things in place. Now, I didn't play the entire um conference because it's like 24 minutes long, so I cut it short. But and part of it, he promised he gonna build homes, apartments for the fallen, for the soldiers and their families, and for specifically the widowers. He's gonna put in um train with widows who do not have a skill or a job to become self-employed, to become um independent. And he's not talking about giving people jobs in the government. He's talking about entrepreneurship, building, creating their own businesses, giving them jobs in the private sector. Okay, he said he's not building any welfare state. He don't want to have a welfare state. That's what he said. He do not want a welfare state. He rather people to become independent. So that's a brilliant move by Ibn Chori. You see, this is what leaders must do and prioritize their people and make sure you're taking care of your people who gave the ultimate sacrifice by giving their lives for the country to make sure who they leave behind does not suffer, but they can grow up and the kids can grow up to have a better life, and for the wives, the widows, to become independent and not suffer or go into depression. They can actually live life and continue to flourish in Burkina Faso. And this is why Burkina Faso is one of the rising nations on the African continent. And this is why we have to demand these kind of things from our leaders. No more relaxing, staying quiet, and wait for election. No, we have to start demand these things that Ibn Chori is putting in place for his people from other African nations and stop with this colonial or is a white man's fault. Sometimes it's our own leaders' fault because why? They do not. They are corrupt. They are thieves. Look, notice Ibn Chori does not have any big homes, expensive cars. That he pour everything into his country. So anyway, let me know what you think about this in the comment section. As always, I don't know. Tell a friend to like, comment, share, subscribe. Boom.